May we bring this meeting to order? We'll start with, and we have some flag over there, so let's pledge of allegiance. And now is the time for public comment. Do we have?
Actually, we need to call roll.
Oh, call
Okay.
roll first then.
Okay. Copeland,
Here.
McCain, here, Wertz, Hyen, Johnson, here, Rust,
Here.
Hanfelder,
Here.
Trent.
Here.
Okay. Public comment, none has been submitted.
Okay, we have a quorum present. Okay, and we've done the pledge, and now it's time for public comment. If anyone has anything to say tonight or whatever. If none, updates.
Yes, sir. So I'll start off with a brief budget health update, which we do each month. So I'll talk about revenues, expenditures, and then sort of give a scenario of what's happening currently. So revenues adjustments to the fiscal year 21 taxes in September included the recognition of back taxes and our final CPPRT payment for fiscal year 21. Our state government revenue and tuition fee revenue is the same as last month and considered finalized at approximately $77,000 below budget. On the expenditure side, fiscal year 21 purchases being significantly final with this report, movement from last month is primarily in the areas of contractual services, general materials and supplies, and utilities. Total expenditures remain under budget for the year. Unique to this stage in fiscal year closing is, in partial with this year, is more transfer activity. And if we'd like, I can have Mary talk a bit about that, but that's a typical sort of practice at this point in the fiscal year closing cycle. The last rounds of our HEERF CARES funding involved a lost revenue component, which pushed about $1.745 million into our operating funds. At the same time, we are posting transfers for all programs that may need supplemental operational fund support, as well as any additional tax dollars that can be made available for future building and deferred maintenance support, which is also an item later on in the board agenda item for discussion. Pending any audit adjustments, if any, the Department of Education activity yet to occur to close out awards, transfer activity is considered final. So overall, I would say, a positive financial picture. We're continuing to do diligence and be responsible within our budget margins. So thank you for the opportunity to present that. And are there any questions, concerns? Okay. Next item is the enrollment update. So I shared, and I was reminded I had, I guess, missed a week or two. Kevin reminded me of that, so thank you, Kevin. So, but I guess the good news is we are total credit students up a little under 3%, so about 2.7%, but our total credit hours is down just about 1% this year. So a lot of good work happening, but I'll be the first to admit we have a tremendous journey in front of us as it relates to enrollment, as it relates to program development, curriculum development, and continuing to refine and develop new access points to Lewis and Clark. But, we're moving forward in a good way, and just proud of the team and all the work that they're doing. Next month, I've asked Brett Reinert, who will be moving into a new position in October, to also present along with our new Dean of Student Experience, who will begin pending board approval October 1st, an enrollment update that kind of looks at a 10-year trend, as well as pointing to some of the opportunities that we may be able to approach to correct some of the downward trending that we've seen over the last 10 years. I'm one to stay optimistic and look at the opportunities in front of us as opportunities and not as challenges. So I think, as I mentioned to the full team today at an all-team meeting, we have the choice to decide, hey, these are things we're not going to be able to fix, or these are things that are continuing to be barriers, or we can look at these as opportunities. So next month, you'll get a comprehensive enrollment update, and hopefully that will provide some insights in terms of what we're doing with key direction one in our strategic plan, but also give you a picture of where some of the vulnerabilities are and where some of the opportunities lie. So that concludes the enrollment update. And I do have one introduction, Laura Fallon, who actually used to be part of our team years ago, and she joined us again as our HR manager. And I don't know if Laura's here, but I'd like to take an opportunity to welcome her back to the team and look forward to our work together. So that concludes the update, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Omnibus Agenda. And we would vote on that as one motion unless any board member wishes to vote on an item separately. Any board member wishing to pull any items from the omnibus to vote on separately? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve.
Second.
And second, okay, Larry and Brenda. Any discussion? If not, a call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain. Yes. Hyen,
Yes?
Johnson. Yes. Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Motion carried. Need a motion for the action items, approval of grant or sponsored contract opportunities, pages 106 through 110. Motion.
So move.
Okay, Brenda, second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
McCain. Yes. Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wertz. Oops, sorry. Hyen,
Yes?
Johnson. Yes.
Motion carried. Need a motion on item B, organization restructure. Have a motion to approve?
So move.
Brenda, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
McCain. Yes. Trent,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson. Yes. Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Item C, approve president's travel to ACCT Leadership Congress, October 13th through the 16th, 2021. Brenda, motion. Okay, need a second? Second, thank you, Larry. Any discussion? I thought he'd pay his own way, but.
Yeah, there is a slight chance I won't attend that conference. Just depends on COVID and travel and restrictions, so, but
Okay.
thank you for the support.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding you.
We can
Call-
split it, David, how's that?
Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
McCain. Yes. Trent,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson. Yes. Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Motion passed. D, Professor Emerita, recommendation for Susan Parton Standard.
So move.
Second? Second, okay. Any discussion, or does anyone wish to make a comment? Anyone? Okay. Call for the vote?
Copeland,
Yes.
McCain. Yes. Trent,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson. Yes. Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Item E, 2021 Emerson Excellence in Teaching Award to Deanna Massey. Motion to approve? Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Comments? Call for the vote?
Copeland,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
McCain. Yes. Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson. Yes.
Item F, approval of one-year agreements for 3 managers of the TRIO programs, Upward Bound and Talent Search.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for the vote?
Copeland,
Yes.
McCain? Yes. Johnson? Yes. Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Hyen.
Yes. Item G, revision of policy 301, team member position change. Motion to approve?
Kevin, was this the one you wanted to remove from the agenda for further discussion, or are you comfortable with discussion tonight? This is the 6%. This is the 6% item you had asked me about earlier.
Yes. Well, I don't think there's can be any discussion until there's been a motion and a second, right?
Yeah.
Are you withdrawing that?
If you'd like, I'm happy to withdraw it as discussed earlier. I was waiting for the item to come up, so.
I'm not the boss here, but I would like for you to,
Okay,
actually.
maybe pull that item, sir.
Okay. Okay, item G withdrawn, okay. Item H, final compensation study based salary adjustments. Motion to approve that.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote?
Copeland,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
McCain? Yes. Hyen,
Yes?
Johnson? Yes. Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Item I, authority to access capital project bond funds for campus improvements, page 128. Motion to approve?
So move.
Motion to approve, there's a second? Any discussion?
I'm happy to chime in here just for, so the idea here, folks, is to provide the administration authority to access up to $2 million of some capital development dollars that we have in a pot that we need to use. As we know, there's a need to begin work in a more comprehensive way in our main complex, but our enrollment center is one that even early last fall when I first started, we started to think about kind of this concept of a one-stop shop. While one-stop shops can cost much more of an investment of $2 million, we'd like to at least have the opportunity to empower a team on campus to begin thinking about what a one-stop shop may look like within the margins of a $2 million budget, come to our leadership team with a proposal by December, and then once that's vetted through our leadership team, bring a proposal where we'd actually ask for the support of the board in January or February. If it's approved, then we'd be able to begin bidding in that formal process in the spring. And hopefully within a year from today, we're able to unveil a kind of refreshed, reimagined one-stop shop for enrollment. And whether that enrollment space stays where it currently is or the concept is to move it would be up to the team that we would empower to do this. So we're simply asking at this moment for the authority to be able to conceptualize something knowing that there is a budget that the board is authorizing us to access. Sort of like saying, hey, let's build it, but we don't really have the resources to do it. We do have the resources to do it. I think, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, about $2.6 million in that pot, and we're asking to access up to about $2 million. So
Could you explain the word, what you mean by a pot? The 2.6 million pot, I'm not familiar with
well, we
that.
have capital development dollars that are in a fund that we need to use for such projects. So these are projects that relate to capital development opportunities on campus. I think, the enrollment space is one where it's a very confined, probably confined isn't the right word, but it's a very sort of difficult space for students to move through in terms of the continuum of movement, and you're nodding your head. I mean, so we're looking at how do we improve that process. So where we may consolidate financial aid, advising, and where students have an easier flow to going through that experience. Plus, there are opportunities there where, from privacy perspectives, I mean, if you've been in the enrollment center, a lot of these separate offices don't have ceilings, and so we're not saying, hey, please allow us to access 2 million. We're going to spend every single penny. It may come back that, working with the architects and working with the team that we come up with a concept that's half of that. But, we're just saying, hey, based on observation, based on what's been done out there in other colleges, this is probably a decent amount of money to say, hey, let's start to plan something, and knowing that we have these dollars that we could access. So yes, we are pulling from a larger sum of money that's accessible, but as Mary and I spoke, we'd like to keep a little bit of that balance available for other projects or initiatives on campus that we may need. So I don't know if anyone else, if Mary, you want to chime in on that, but.
So just to clarify, you're not asking or not expecting the board to issue bonds, right?
No, this has nothing to do. We have this money. We have this money. And this is only to authorize us to access those dollars that we currently have. So I'm sort of putting maybe the cart before the horse, but deliberately to say, hey, before I ask a team on campus, hey, let's think about this. It's that question, well, geez, Ken, that'd be great, but are we really going to get it funded? So this is you as a board saying, okay, we like the idea, we trust in the process here, we're going to authorize you to access up to $2 million. Now, you still have to approve that once we bring the proposal forward in the spring and say it's a $1.4 million project that we've vetted, that we've got design for, a timeline for, then we would ask for your approval to actually write a check for X number of dollars to support it. But we're saying we're going to work very hard not to exceed 2 million. Mary?
Right. These are capital project bond funds that we already have in our accounts, and they're part of the operations and maintenance restricted fund in the investments. We have about 2.6, 2.7 there. We had technically earmarked those some time ago for a few other things. So that's where we've arrived at the $2 million. But that will more or less, if we use the 2 million, those are funds from, I'm not even going to try to guess the year, but these are our funds that we haven't accessed of late.
So these, you say that's restricted money. Was restricted by a board action?
It's operations
restricted?
and maintenance fund restricted money. So it is available for capital project use, not for general maintenance use.
So you're not thinking about building another building?
No.
Okay, and so do you think it's premature to do this because of the main complex, or is this?
It's actually part of the main complex. And if it were to stay in the same space, it would be just, we're going to remodel that space. We're going to reimagine that space. So, yeah. I mean, premature, I don't know. I'm sort of encouraging more of a proactive approach to this. I mean, even if we start now with conceptualizing and trying to come up with an idea, I mean, we're still looking at a year before this could even come to fruition. So it's, really just saying, yes, go forward. But of course, before we start anything, we have to get board approval for the budget that we'd be seeking ultimately. So, and at that time, things could change. So what I really want to be able to do is get a process started and not kind of wait another semester or another 6 months before, because there are obviously some other options or opportunities we may have for other parts of the main complex, as I'll talk about a little bit later. So.
I agree with you that this is needed. I thought this all along, but it just makes me a little uncomfortable. It says authorization to access, which to me means spend the money, but you're saying it doesn't. You're just saying
maybe it's the yeah. So knowing that if we were to go forward with this, those are the dollars that we would use from that specific capital project.
So you're
pot.
You're
right.
wanting us to say it's possible.
Yes, that if we were to approve a project, we authorize that the project could be funded through this specific allocation of dollars, and you would ultimately have the final say in, I'd say, January, February timeframe. We bring forward a formal proposal to say this is what the team's worked on over the semester. We've kept it within that authorization of $2 million that you granted us last October or last September, and then you can ultimately decide at that point. So we're not spending the money at this
Right.
point. We're just asking,
I would add that it helps to define the scope for the
Yeah.
legal team as they're
Right.
working. We don't need, a big dreams for a $5 million, $6 million one-stop shop if what we have to offer is two.
kind of want to work within a budget and kind of work hard to focus and say, okay, here's what we could really do, meets the needs of Lewis and Clark, help support the enrollment team, which really needs to, have a space that's conducive to serving students at a higher level. And so hopefully we can come up with a reasonable concept within that budget. And once we have a concept, we'll bring that to the board for formal approval early spring. And then hopefully at that point, have the authorization to actually access the dollars and move forward, so.
So how does this fit into the renovation of the main complex?
Yeah, so this is a totally separate piece. This
Yeah.
is, it's
But
a
it's in
total.
the same building?
Yeah, so it's on the other side of the building, not connected to the main, kind of the main five connected sort
So
of pieces.
it's not a part of the 37.5?
No,
That,
no.
those two wouldn't,
No.
two projects wouldn't touch?
No, they wouldn't touch.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Okay.
third, yeah.
I guess my concern is that, with the issues at the main complex, maybe we need to have, a bigger plan, but maybe that will come to fruition over the next year to figure out what's going to happen with the main complex and where the enrollment center
Yeah,
fits
so,
in there.
right, so to that point, I think, getting this planning started, knowing that we have some allocation accessible, I mean, again, it, gets the ball rolling, and you're very right. It may turn out that through this process, wait a minute, we'd be better suited if we try to fold this into, another part of the building that might fold into
Yeah,
the 37.5 million. But in order to get there, I don't want the team to say, hey, come up with an idea. Not really sure if we'll ever get it funded, but come up with an idea, because it takes time and energy. We'd have to engage our architect. We'd have to, spend a little bit of money there to get a concept built out, and then be able to bring that to the board to say, here's what we've conceptualized as kind of this next generation one-stop shop. And it looks like the investment will be X, Y, and Z within that 2 million. We may very well come and say, hey, after vetting through this and getting some concepts, it looks like, we're going to be way beyond that budget, and it looks like a better space for this is over in XYZ building in the main complex.
right.
So it
yeah,
may
that's-
move.
That's another concern I have. So,
Yeah.
with maybe part of the main complex not being usable,
Yeah.
do we need to have a whole analysis of all the building utilizations? And, do we know that that's the best place for the enrollment center and the best place to put our money? Or, I guess those are all things that this team might
It
come
is.
up with.
It's exactly all things the team
Okay.
can look at, so.
Okay, well,
yeah.
I'm going to trust you on
Okay,
that then.
all right, thank you. And thanks for the questions. That's good.
Any other comments or questions? Call for the vote?
Copeland,
Yes?
McCain,
Yes.
Trent. Yes. Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Item J, Resolution 22-2, affirmation of authorization to dispose of real property, page 129. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second?
Motion been made and a second. Any discussion? If not, call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes?
Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, informational items. Back to you, Dr. Dreska.
Yeah, so on these, as I've done in the past, if there are any particular questions on any of these, let me know. The one that I'd naturally like to spend a little bit of time on and get some feedback from the board is on item E. So the others, I'd ask if you take a look at those respective pages, and if you have any specific questions, I can answer those or call on a team member who could answer them perhaps better than I can, so.
Any trustee have any questions with regard to A through F?
I'd like to talk about E, if I can.
I don't know if we're allowed that. You're talking too much tonight.
I've been talking too much already. I know.
Okay.
So this again is an informational item, and, kind of some context to this is, obviously we all know where we're at with the main complex, and, had to make a call that necessarily wasn't the most popular call or the most convenient call. But we have an opportunity here to really think, I believe, differently about the main complex. I've talked with legislators, I've talked with, or indirectly to deputy governors. Just this afternoon or this morning, I spoke with one of our representatives who is going to be helping even more, following up with individuals I followed up with on the capital development dollars that have been announced that Lewis and Clark will get. It's just a matter of when we get them. What I understand most recently is that capital development dollars could be, quote unquote, loosening up in Springfield. What that means, I don't know, but what I've heard is it could mean that we get these dollars in a phased approach. That may mean, hey, we get $10 million a year for a number of years. So the concern I have, and the purpose for this item as an informational item, and I understand this is a sensitive one because it requires, sort of taking on arguably additional debt to invest in the campus, to invest in part of the campus, which is historic, which also carries some vulnerabilities with it. So not knowing for sure what's happening with our state dollars, the capital development dollars, just an open discussion on what the board's questions may be or concerns may be. I think one other point I'll make is when we talk about investing in the main complex, I think the original renovation was really to renovate for the most part as is. So, renovating the classrooms and the offices. In my opinion, I think the future of learning spaces and access to Lewis and Clark is going to change. And so how does our main complex in a more futuristic way reflect that change in both what expectations are from students, knowing what some of the demographic shifts are going to look like over the next number of years. It may not be that we have all these classrooms or all these offices, but rather open, collaborative, sort of innovative spaces that support education, but also support different types of community engagement, et cetera. Big part of that is our investment in technology. And, I kind of cap it with this. When someone asked me, and I think several of you had asked me, what are a couple of things that worry me most? And it was the main complex and technology, the requirement that we're going to have to make in technology as we evolve as an institution. So perhaps as a way to frame this discussion even more is technology. Is the board open, again, it's a bit nebulous, but is the board open to administration exploring options to take on additional, dare I use the word debt, or invest in the college in ways that support technology, support some different ways of looking at the main complex through the nickel tax, as well as the PHS bonds, which are the public health and safety bonds, which the main complex would qualify for. I know I've talked to some of you outside of the board meeting about this as we were prepping, and I know some of the sentiment, and I respect that fully. The last thing I want to do is, take on additional burden for the institution in our community, but I also look at the value, both symbolically, emotionally, and of course, historically, that the main complex represents to Lewis and Clark Community College. Oftentimes, if you think about Lewis and Clark Community College, you think about the beauty. The first thing you typically hear is that's a beautiful campus. And, while there's weight in that, it's also, we want to be known as the beautiful campus that's the most innovative and the most successful. So a lot of tough choices ahead of us, I understand. So this is really just, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your recommendations? What advice might you have? Knowing that, hey, we may eventually get this money from the state, but I think until the check shows up, it's still speculative, although I've heard more optimistic sort of gestures, at least, or signals in the last, say, several weeks to a month. So I'll pause there and see what questions, thoughts, concerns there are, and do my best to answer those.
Well, I'll publicly state I approve of your approach to this. We've discussed this before, that I think we need to think big and have a great imagination with what ifs on the main complex. We're here to stay, and let's do it, and let's meet the future, and whatever that takes, I support that, whether it be the 5% or even a bond issue, after much study, and, but as I said earlier this evening to you, let's get our architect, and let's look at the what ifs. What ifs? And you have a committee looking at that. I think that's a great move to go in that direction. And hopefully, we get going on this project, and attract more students. It'll work together for sure. Thank you.
On the 37.5 or whatever it is, don't we have to stick with the plan that was submitted to get those funds? We can't just go in there and say, oh, we're not going to use it for that, we're going to use it for this.
Yeah, we do. But if we got additional dollars, we could piggyback. In other words, it won't, like, just say hypothetically, the board's, okay, we'll authorize the nickel tax to be focused on one specific project in the main complex. That $37.5 million was designed to support a concept that I don't mean this in a negative way, but I think we need to rethink what that original concept was. It was more of a traditional renovation to that building. As far as I understand, and talking to representatives of it, ICCB, we do have a little bit of flexibility there, and at least the advice to me was the state wouldn't hold anything against you, knowing that the situation is dynamic, and this work we do is not static. I mean, we can't say, hey, we had an idea 5 years ago, now we're finally going to get the money. A lot of things have happened in 5 years, let alone a pandemic, let alone, just look at enrollment, and obviously we have to unravel some of this when it comes to the virtual access. I mean, things are looking different, and we're trending in a way that there may be more of a need to think differently about what those spaces look like. So to answer your question, it's yes, but we have some flexibility there if we want to make adjustments, as far as I understand. But that's stuff that we would continue to dig into and get clarity on before we took any action. I mean, before we bring anything formal to the board in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be fully vetted and assure that it would be done the right way. I promise you that. I mean, we're going to do it the right way. It's just we want at least to have an opportunity to, okay, what's the sentiment of the board? Okay, yeah, start looking into these things. Obviously, at the end of the day, in future months, if we have shaped a proposal or we have something, we would bring that to you formally, of course, vetting it with you, through updates and, sort of insights to say, okay, here's the way this is looking, making sure that if we bring something to the board, we're confident in where you stand as a team to support the vision that we want to put forward. But it's a pretty dynamic and complex one, no pun intended, but it is.
Well, I know the building is important to the college and to the community, but I'm concerned about incurring more debt and raising taxes. Maybe this wouldn't raise taxes. I'm not sure I understand about the nickel levy. It would just not let it go away, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
You want to explain that, Mary? Yeah. I can explain it, but she'll do a better job. That's what,
Right. The nickel levy that we are currently assessing goes towards debt service on the 2014 issue. So one of the options that we have here, we actually have two options when it comes to that nickel levy. One of them is to continue the nickel levy and define the project to be specifically to the main complex renovation. Because when you levy that particular nickel, the PHS nickel, you have to name your projects. The other option is to do basically what we have done for the past several years, and that is issue bonds against that revenue source as payments for debt service. Now, depending on the dollar amount that we would choose to borrow would determine how long that could take to pay back. And that's why I just, for reference, put different numbers in the information item, and 8.5 years essentially paid off a little over 11 million in borrowing. So, those are things we could consider and I'm sure that as property values have increased, the value of that nickel has slowly gone up over those 8.5 years as well. So those are just two options we have with the nickel. Leaving the nickel on the levy is definitely simpler, but it only gives us $2 million essentially at a time. How meaningful is $2 million at a time when we're looking at a $37.5 million project and components, the main components that we really need, and we need them all, but Baldwin and Caldwell are 8 and 9 million apiece. So going at it that way would be slow and steady. So that's the two options that we have there with the nickel.
Just, big picture with enrollment, declining or having declined, I just don't know how smart it is to finish off, all these classrooms. I guess I don't have a good grasp on how much of the building's used for classrooms and so forth, So I guess I'm gonna, again, trust you on this. We're starting this discussion, but I really need to see some analysis
On the facilities,
what's it gonna be used for? And, with enrollment having declined so significantly over the last 10 years, can we really justify taking on debt when the number of people that we're serving is, declined? So those are my concerns. You don't have to answer them now, but this is a good way to start the discussion, so.
Thank you.
My concern is if we don't do something, it could significantly impact enrollment in a negative way, and it would continue the downhill slide. Having said that, I think we need to make sure that we have a continual full court press on the people in state to turn loose these dollars. We're in a desperate situation here. And after talking with you on the phone yesterday, Ken, I feel better about that. But having spent a few decades in state government, I know the squeaky wheel always gets the grease. And if we were in Chicago, we'd probably already have the money. But that's beside the point. I think we need to make sure that we continue that full court press. I wouldn't even trust them to give them the money back after we spent it. But I like the approach that you're taking, and I think we should do that. But I think if we don't do it, it could also negatively affect enrollment.
Thank you.
I did just want to reinforce in what I was saying earlier. In both of those scenarios that I outlined, we would not be raising the tax rate because it's within the existing nickel. Okay.
To kind of piggyback on his statement, a lot of students are upset because they were pushed back into virtual classes. And once enrolling for the next semester comes around, a lot of students are going to have to take classes virtually. That could hit enrollment kind of hard. A lot of students really don't want to be taking virtual classes any longer than they have to. And I think that could be a problem coming up. And right now we don't have the facilities to have all of our classrooms in person. So I don't know how to deal with that, but it is a problem.
I mean, is that the case? Are all of our buildings full? Are all of the classrooms in all of our
I mean,
buildings full?
and it's a matter of scheduling and trying to, get a bit creative with how we do that. I'll talk with Sam more on this. I've asked him to meet with him a little bit to talk about this sort of, these trends and like where, because, you hear students want this flexibility in the virtual piece, but then there's this whole group that's like, hey, I want to have that face-to-face experience. So which programs are those? What is the compromise to that, and then what do these learning spaces look like? I mean, the main complex is a remarkable building, but are the classrooms that are currently in there, the small size, kind of the cramped kind of spaces, are those conducive to learning, to collaboration, to thinking a bit bigger, or, this cheesy thing I like to say is kind of eliminating that box and thinking, hey, what does the future of education look like? So I agree 100%, but I'd like to dig into that a little bit more, because the decisions we make ultimately shape kind of where we're predicting the future of enrollment at some level to be. And so, you know, yeah, so, but it's a great point, and I think we do need to pull in more of the student perspective on that as well. So thank you, Sam. Yep.
Really just to try to add some context to, you know, your questions about building usage. There were over 100 sections, and probably more than that, because as 150, because as classrooms and AC units started to fail, we were moving them individually. But in one night, Jeff Coles, who's our director of academic operations, had to move over 100 class sections to other areas of campus. We asked the faculty if they had a preference to, you know, if there was a requirement to keep those face-to-face, because we knew space was going to be a challenge. But the main complex is our main classroom building as it stands today. It also houses all of our student services, from enrollment services, financial aid, but, you know, all of those student support services, development and counseling, the library. So it is a critical hub on campus. And as Sam can tell you, you know, just walking those halls, you know, there's just a lot of work to be done there, regardless of our AC issues and the need for renovation in order to achieve those HVAC efficiencies. So just wanted to add some context to that.
Thanks, Lori. So again, thank you for the openness and the comments, everyone. And I think, you know, what I'd like to do is continue this discussion at a deeper level with our leadership team, and, you know, keep the board informed on how a proposal may be taking shape, and then kind of go from there. So thank you.
Do you have any more information you wish to give, or is it?
No, sir, I'm fine, as well as if the board's satisfied, then I guess Kevin may have an update on ICCTA, I suppose.
Yeah. I know everyone's been waiting breathlessly for my report on the ICCTA. But I'll try to make it a little interesting anyway. It was a very interesting trip, actually. It was the executive committee retreat in Kewanee, Illinois, which is quite a ways northwest of Peoria. We met at the Black Hawk Community College, actually the East Campus of the Black Hawk Community College. We toured their welding facility, which when I toured the facility, I kind of realized I've never toured our facility, so I need to do that. They actually have I don't know whether we do or not, but up at Black Hawk, they have a very close partnership with some local companies that do metal fabricating and that, and they're very, you know, obviously very proud of that, and it's really working well for them. I don't know if we have that or not. I'd be interested to know. The other thing we did there on the Black Hawk campus is we toured their equine center. They are only one of 2 colleges I believe in the whole United States, community colleges and others, that have an equine center where they actually train people to train horses, I guess is what it amounts to. Then in conjunction with that facility, they have a veterinarian technician program. And they're training veterinarian technicians to assist veterinarians, of course, to do all kinds of animal care, from the smallest little dogs all the way up to horses. And it was interesting. They actually have they keep horses there. They board horses for their people to train in that, and then from time to time they will have a horse that needs to be euthanized, and the horse will be brought up to the building and euthanized, and then it's hung up sort of like reminds me of this apparatus here, so that they can actually dissect that animal and learn. It sounds kind of gory, but there weren't any of those animals there when I was there, fortunately, but I grew up on a farm, so it wouldn't have bothered me anyway. One of the other things we did was, I won't obviously go over everything, but we had a legislative update from Jessica Narduli, which is the Illinois Community College Trustee Association lobbyist in Springfield. And I don't know how much buttonholing she does in that for lobbying really, but she keeps track of everything that's going through the legislative system. We have, do all of the trustees get information on the legislation that's being considered that affects community colleges? You do get that, okay. Okay, I was going to forward it to you, but you do get it. So there's 6 objectives or goals that the ICCT has when it comes to legislation. Number 1, we want to maintain local control of community colleges. And that seems like a no-brainer, except that there are quite a few states in the United States where community colleges, boards of trustees, and well, they don't even have a board of trustees, they're actually governed or managed or supervised directly by the state, by people that are appointed. And that's one of the goals. One of the goals is not to have that here in Illinois. Second goal number 2 is equitable funding for community colleges as compared to all other institutions of higher learning. Number 3, equity in higher education as far as access, affordability, and completion. And then number 4 goal kind of dovetails with that, the monetary award program, which kind of supports that equity access. Because for community colleges, as we all know, for many people the people that come to community colleges are the first people in their families that come to college, are able to get to college. And so that's definitely one of our 2 goals there. Goal number 5 is bachelor's degrees, when and where appropriate. We're not talking about wholesale bachelor's degrees, but for instance, the 2 that have been talked about by far the most are bachelor's in nursing and bachelor's in early childhood. But when and where it's needed, where there isn't, for example, a 4-year college that's already offering a bachelor's degree in nursing or early childhood. And then goal number 6 goes to what we've been talking about, capital project funding. And all of the community colleges in Illinois have over $1 billion of capital funding that we're waiting on. So it's not just us. So that's enough on that. We got an update from Matt Berry of the Illinois Community College Board.
Okay, well, I'm gonna start it. Simply because I don't know. Okay, can you wait?
And then one of the highlights that we did was on Friday night. We were there. It was a 2.5-day session, all day Friday and Saturday morning. And on Friday night, we drove 45 minutes to New Windsor, Illinois, a little town of about 750 people. And they had a rodeo there that I hadn't been to a rodeo in probably close to 30 years, I guess. And I was amazed. They had, I'd say over 5,000 people there at the rodeo in this little town of 750. And then the other thing on the way there was kind of amazing to me, and this is my final comment. We see wind turbines here, windmills, whatever you want to call them, from time to time. We see quite a few of them up towards Rockford, for example, and as we go north on 55. But as we were driving 45 minutes west from Kewanee, I saw hundreds of windmills. I couldn't believe it. They're generating a lot of electricity up there from the wind. That concludes my report, unless anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting report. Appreciate it.
So next,
Team reports?
yep, so we'll start with Dr. Lane on academic affairs.
Hello, everyone. So this week, we started the 4th week of classes, and I would venture...
Excuse me.
Yes.
I would hope that the speakers could you lower your mask? I could hear you better.
Sure.
Yeah, or raise the mic or something.
Okay,
It-
no,
okay.
that's fine. I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to be respectful of everyone here, so. We started the 4th week of classes, and I would say, given all the circumstances we've been dealing with, things have been going really well. And I do want to give kudos to some folks who acted within days. We moved these 150 sections of courses. We moved dozens of faculty offices. So I want to thank Jeff Coles, who worked so hard to find those classroom spaces. I want to thank Chris Palda and Kimberly Kleinschmidt, who worked to help find places. Maintenance, who moved so many computers and with IT, and just a group of people who worked so hard. And I worked with my deans, I worked with Lori, and we just made it happen, and it was amazing. And there were just no complaints, knock on wood. But I just want to thank all the faculty and all the students who were so patient and flexible and dealing with that while we're in the middle of a pandemic. So just, can we give like a round of applause to those folks? And the last thing I'll say about the main complex is I think the concern is we are maxed out in terms of where we can move people. And so if anything continues to deteriorate, we're looking at portable buildings or renting space somewhere. So those of us who are housed in the main complex are waiting. You know, hopefully this ceiling doesn't fall in on us. But we are thankful to operations and maintenance for doing all the testing that we're doing that make the rest of us there feel safe. So thanks to Lori and her staff for that. Just some other quick updates. We are still continuing to outfit rooms for BlendFlex. We have students who are quarantined here and there, and we have the ability, I know Michael and Sue worked really hard to, we purchased these OWL 360 cameras, and they're kind of loaning them out so that if a faculty member has some folks who are quarantined but well enough to still attend class, they can use those OWL cameras to do that. So lots of flexibility going on with our faculty, and I appreciate that from them. I think we mentioned earlier that, and Michael worked really hard with IT on this, to create virtual spaces for students who have a face-to-face class, then a virtual class, then a face-to-face class. So we've got spaces with computers and other kind of virtual friendly spaces. Signage is being made with QR codes. And so I want to thank Michael and IT for working so hard on that. And Brett's been a big part of that as well. So we are working on the spring schedule. The academic affairs team is working with Jeff Coles, and we're working to make sure we're doing the most efficient scheduling possible so that we don't have to cancel courses for students in the last minute, which again adds to student frustration, which potentially causes us to lose students. In the midst of all this, we're still doing our regular stuff. We've started our next group of 5-year program review people. We will do those program review presentations. It's a very robust process. We will do those in February. And we are starting next month writing for our next HLC self-study and visit, which happens in April of 2023. That's a huge undertaking, and so we'll be starting on that soon. We have a team of writers. We're still kind of assembling the team of writers. Dennis Krieb and I work very closely on that project, and so we are hoping for a very successful new 10-year accreditation in April of 2023. So any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Lori.
Hard to think about, hard to think about figuring out where we're going to fit in all this writing for the self-study, but we will get it done. I really just want to thank the board tonight and Mr. Hyen for your comments about the openness and the willingness to explore some opportunities for the main complex. As Dr. Traska, I know, sent an update to the entire campus team and also shared with the board, I just wanted to address the main complex issue, as if we haven't talked about it enough tonight, but just wanted to offer an opportunity for any questions that the board might have as well. Obviously, we've been working on a strategy, I would say my predecessor, since 2009. In 2011 was the first time that the renovation project showed up in the 2011 RAMP document, which was submitted in 2009. But we've been working for quite some time to try to address the needs that we knew at that time and we know today are still really vital to improving our main complex. So, of course, the start of the fall semester, it proved really just how badly things have become in terms of what Dr. Traska provided in his report. But the real issue that I know he highlighted was the excessive heat and the extreme humidity that was being introduced into the building. And for whatever reason, those third and fourth floor fan coil units and those classrooms were the area where we were just struggling. They were failing repeatedly. As soon as maintenance would, as soon as it would get reported to someone in maintenance, they were being repaired, but there was just so much humidity in the air. And unfortunately, these fan coil units are just recirculating air. They're not removing any humidity or water vapor. And they were just really struggling to keep up. As our director of academic operations noted, you could walk through the hallways near entryways that first week of class, and the plaster walls were literally just sweating. That was how much humidity was in the building. So obviously these failing AC units and the moisture introduced into the building from that external humidity were creating conditions throughout the week of visible mold growth on surfaces and odors in classrooms that really were just signifying that there were other problems to come. So it was a constantly changing situation as we began conducting air quality testing immediately as soon as Chris Palda and her team were notified, started working with environmental contractors to clean spaces rapidly, and as Jill has mentioned, relocating classes. We were doing that one by one in the beginning before ultimately it was a tough decision that leadership had to discuss in terms of what's in the best interest of safety for everyone who's accessing those third and fourth floors. Our goal was to really minimize the disruption to the learning environment. It's already been such a challenging semester with the COVID mandates, and in the midst of the week where we had to announce that decision about closing the main complex was also the same week we were having to communicate to our students and campus community about the new state mandate regarding vaccinations and testing. So it's been a challenge for our students and our entire team, and I just really want to acknowledge, as Jill said, just the ability to persevere through some of these huge distractions for all of us. I just want to mention tonight we have some representatives with us. I know Mike Burke, who is with Farmer Environmental, is joining us via Zoom, and I appreciate that. Also, we have Aaron Morris from AAIC with us, and Tom Buckheit from Brick Engineering, who have helped us kind of troubleshoot this from the beginning and have been a part of really our strategic planning related to the renovation of the main complex for many years. So I just want to acknowledge them and their support, and if we have any questions, I'm sure they would love to step to the mic and answer anything you guys might have. But I just want to highlight a few of the key points from Dr. Traska's full report. The main issue is our current HVAC system. These individual fan coil units, they're outdated. Our maintenance team, as Matt Batchelor and others can tell you, are constantly having to provide maintenance to them. Parts are outdated, if not obsolete, so it's definitely exacerbated when we have these weather conditions that we experienced. And as we've talked with our engineers and our architects, the only way to ensure this doesn't happen again is through a new HVAC system, and the only way to achieve a new HVAC system that would meet code, increase ventilation, pull in that outside air that is needed is going to require the major renovation of the main complex, because we don't have room in our historic complex for the ducts that would be required to do that. So, and then I also just want to stress, obviously, our leadership team, and as you've heard tonight from Dr. Traska, we just continue to push and explore funding opportunities in order to completely resolve this issue. So I wanted to just reiterate too that the mold that we were experiencing on campus is not black mold. It is mold that is present in this room, in the air, indoors and outdoors. It requires a water source in order to grow, and that humidity, the humid conditions of the main complex, the failing AC units, which also create leaks, were just fueling this mold growth. And as I mentioned earlier, it was a rapidly changing situation that we were responding to as fast as possible. Jill has already done an excellent job of really just recognizing our team members, and I do want to thank everyone from operations, maintenance, academic affairs. It really took a village, and everybody just rolled up their sleeves and did what was needed. As I mentioned, Jeff Coles had to move over 100 classes overnight. I think he was called a miracle worker by many. And some of those classes we were able to find homes for them, but as Sam mentioned, the reality was that we had to move many of those to virtual sessions. So I have to commend our maintenance team. Not only were they responding to repairing all of these failed AC units, but they were also helping us move folks out of unsafe conditions and into other areas of campus. And of course, Chris Balda, our director of operations, who I think there was a period of 14 days straight that Chris was on campus, either working with the cleaning crews over the weekends or working to, even prior to the start of campus, picking up pallets of hand sanitizer and wipes to prepare for the start of classes. So, and I want to just commend our faculty and students because their ability to shift in the midst of all this change, as I've already mentioned, the faculty just really focused on what was important at that time, and that was helping our students stay focused on their learning, and I commend them for that. So although the current conditions in those spaces have greatly improved as the weather conditions have obviously been more favorable, although maybe not today, we are continuing to monitor all of those spaces daily, and we're repeating air quality testing throughout those floors and the main complex ongoing to ensure a safe environment for everyone there. And I would just add that in the past, if somebody, I think it's known, but in case it's not, if there's a concern about something on a surface or a smell in the air, we want to know about it. We often do air quality testing with Farmer Environmental. They're very quick to respond. And most of the time it's nothing, and sometimes, there might be something we need to investigate a little bit further. So I just want to reiterate to everybody on campus, if that's an issue, please report it through Chris. So next steps, as Dr. Traska noted, are continuing to work with our architects and engineers to develop a strategy. And we want to ensure that those impacted floors, the 3rd and 4th floors of Baldwin and Caldwell, are completely healthy and safe before we move anyone back in there, which, as we've talked about, is most likely going to be following a renovation if we can help that. So with that, if the board has any questions about, the issues as they were happening that week, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Yeah, I have a question. Could you kind of restate what the status is right now? Have all the classrooms opened up and we're using them now?
No, we are not.
Why not?
We're not because we can't, there's no guarantee that this isn't going to happen again.
I don't understand what's changed from in the last 10 years. What has changed that now the conditions are so much worse than they were 2 summers ago or 3 summers ago? We have high humidity every year.
Yeah. What has changed is the age of our HVAC system, and
Can't we replace those?
We can replace them one for one, and Tom, these are the questions we've been asking at Brick too. We can replace every individual fan coil unit one for one, but it's still limited in what it's able to do related to ventilation. It does not pull any outside air in. It's simply recirculating air.
No, they never have since who knows, when they were first put in 20 years ago or whatever.
Right, right.
So it's no different now than it was last year or the year before or the year before that, right?
So the humidity and the heat index, and as Tom could talk about wet bulb, but we were seeing temperatures and humidity in the buildings we've just never seen before. I'm not sure, and I could guesstimate, but I'll ask Tom if there's anything you want to add to that.
I think you have a valid question, and it boils down to this. There is an organization called ASHRAE. ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. ASHRAE categorizes and collects data on ambient dry bulb, what's called dry bulb, which is heat in the air, and then also wet bulb. Wet bulb is a little bit more of a obtuse measurement, but what it does is wet bulb records the amount of water vapor in the air. Over your 16-day period that Laurie collected data, 8 of those days were beyond ASHRAE's maximum wet bulb and dry bulb temperature conditions. So when you take that into account, and then you take into account all the students moving in and out of the building at a pretty rapid pace, the accumulation of all of that, coincident with equipment that's aged and old, is what's developing these conditions that are primed for mold development. And that's what we're seeing. It's not to say that the equipment can't do it, but there's limited wherewithal within that equipment to actually remove that moisture. That's what's happening at this point in time.
Why couldn't that moisture be removed with dehumidifiers?
You can supplement the building HVAC system with dehumidifiers and do it that way. You can.
And why wasn't that done? They only
I don't
cost
know.
like $200 and $300.
There are dehumidifiers in all of those rooms, as well as ozone machines to clean the air.
Could you take your mask off, please?
There were dehumidifiers immediately put in those rooms that had those higher levels. We had a room that had saturated carpet, and so we removed all of the carpet out of it. Ozone machines were deployed in order to help improve the air quality, but dehumidifiers are often used by us. We own quite a few anytime there's a humidity issue reported in a classroom. But it's not a part of the HVAC system. They're just portable dehumidifiers. We also have the air purifiers in most all of these rooms that were purchased with CARES dollars in order to, help clean the air, so to speak, related to COVID. So
I still haven't heard an answer to my question about what's changed, other than there's been some regulations that are different, I guess.
yeah, I don't know, Tom, if you would want to speak to just the value in, we've talked about a ducted system in terms of
The fan, nothing has changed in terms of your basic system. That's a fact. It is what it was.
And nothing has changed about the weather either, right?
I would say my own observations on the weather. We've been collecting just anecdotal data over the past 5 years or so. Wet bulbs are definitely increasing. Why that's happening, I think that's a subject that's yet to be determined. But wet bulbs are moving up. In other words, the amount of moisture in the air is definitely increasing. And if you look at climate change as an example, climate change, there are recorded temperatures that are higher than they have been historically. So the warmer the airstream, the more moisture it can hold. That's just the way physics works. So wet bulbs are beyond what they normally have been. And I will say that's factual, based upon our own observations, and then looking at Laurie's collection of data over 16 days, 8 of those days, temperature and humidity, dry bulb and wet bulb temperatures were higher than what's recorded. So it does happen. There's the basic problem with your HVAC system. It is a fan coil system, and a fan coil system has very limited capacity to remove temperature and humidity. To begin with, even on a good day, even new out of the box, your particular system, the fan coil units have what's called two-row coils. So you have maybe 1 to 2 rows that are dedicated to heating, 1 to 2 rows that are dedicated to cooling. So you just have a limited wherewithal to remove temperature and humidity from the space to begin with. If those, in lieu of fan coils, if you had a standard air handling unit that had an 8, 6, 8, 10, 12 row deep coil, you would have a lot more capacity and capability to remove moisture. You don't have that kind of system. You have a fan coil system. So when you have these days where ambient conditions are such, temperature and humidity are climbing on you and they're beyond norm, as you did 8 of those 16 days that Lori recorded the data, in concert with a system that has limited wherewithal to remove temperature and humidity, there you can see where you might have a problem. When you have a lot of students moving in and out of the building at that point in time, opening and closing doors, you're just bringing in that outside air in addition to what's already inside the load or inside the building from student loads. So the system gets taxed. And over the course of time, HVAC systems, like all mechanical systems, don't get better in terms of performance. They suffer in terms of performance. That's a tough thing to say, because whether or not your system, if I look at the industry standards, your system would have a 20-year life expectancy. That's fact. I can show you those tables. But people do a really good job in terms of maintaining systems beyond average expected useful life. The problem here is you don't have much to begin with. You don't have a whole lot of wherewithal within that system to remove moisture and humidity. So I'm saying, all I'm really saying is limited wherewithal combined with excessive heat and humidity, which happened over this course of time, 8 times over this 16 days, brings a condition about where it just gets tough to attain specific and proper temperature and humidity within the spaces. I think that's what happened over this 16-day period. That's what you suffered. So what is being envisioned for you with this $37.5 million project is a system that will have these deeper coils that can dry out moisture much, much better, more effectively, more efficiently than what you're doing now with these simple single-row, 2-row fan coil units. That's what's envisioned for you. In addition to that, then we're also envisioning makeup air systems where we can actually dry that outside air. You've got bathroom exhaust, you have other exhaust requirements within the building that happen. They're just a function of some of the processes that you employ in your teaching environment in those buildings. So what I'm suggesting, what we would like to see done is that systems are employed that can really wring that moisture out and make a starting point within the environment, within the space, much drier than normal. Because you think about it, you have an old building structure. This building structure is stone. Vapor barriers, air barriers on the wall are probably not there. So the building itself is always going to take on temperature and humidity. So you, in my opinion, you really have got to do something that will enable you to start your room conditions at a much lower condition, because you know that these things are going to happen to you. You just know that you're going to take on moisture because of the age and the condition of that building. It's not a new building. If we had a new building, we would have proper vapor barriers and air barriers in there that would actually stop a lot of that penetration. We don't have that. So you've got to do some, in my opinion, you've got to do some things that enable you to start at a much lower humidity condition and temperature condition within the rooms to take on that moisture as it comes at you.
I might just chime in. I think, you know, in my opinion, what's changed, and really one of the factors that went into making the decision, I think, is just the tolerance of the environment as well. I mean, you know, we also took into consideration feedback from team members working in those spaces who are affected. And, you know, in my opinion, and I'd make the call again and again, if you know, we can help someone, you know, feel better, you know, or if someone's saying, listen, I can't work in this environment because I may suffer from asthma, or I may be vulnerable in some other ways, and now I'm feeling triggered because of this environment. I really feel it's that tolerance of saying, hey, you know, this is the space you work in, and keep working in it until we get this money, until we can, you know, reimagine this space. You know, and maybe it's just me. I just think it was the right call to make to protect the team. And yes, it's inconvenient, and there's arguments on every side of this, but at the end of the day, it was the health and safety of the team. And if I even hear from one person that says, listen, I can't tolerate being in this office, and you look up and there's mold, whether it's black mold, green mold, I don't care. I mean, mold is affecting, you know, having a safe and decent space to work in, and, you know, and so, I mean, it's also an image thing. I mean, you know, students are coming in saying, gosh, you know, hey, did you look in that upper corner, or did you look at the walls peeling? I mean, at some point you have to say, listen, we need to start thinking differently about this and being more aggressive, whether that's with our state legislators. You know, in some ways, I hope there's a realization, if state legislators are listening, that we have a real need at Lewis and Clark to take care of this issue one and for all. We have a historic campus, and the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets. The more vulnerability we put in, you know, with our team who work in that building. We're trying our best to test on a regular basis and stay tuned into what's happening and make the adjustments we need necessary, but at some point that tolerance breaks. And, you know, well, that's my opinion. I think it, as well as the infrastructure pieces that were just pointed out. I mean, it's tough, but I get where you're going, Kevin, and I respect that point. But I think, you know, if it's, well, can't we just move everybody back in there? I won't support that. I don't feel it's in the best interest of the institution. It's the best interest of our team or our students to say, hey, we're pretty sure it's okay in there. You know, so I just think from an image perspective, that's also something that I'm considering. So it's my 2 cents, but I just hope we can get through this and everybody do their part to try our best to keep advocating for what needs to happen. If you have an issue or you have a concern in a space you're currently in and still in that building, you let us know. And if you say, hey, I feel more comfortable being elsewhere, we will make that change. Right now, we feel comfortable with the spaces that are currently accommodated, but the spaces we did vacate, you know, there was an elevated concern, and that factored in with the feedback we were getting, I think was the right call. So I think the tolerance is what's changed most. It's just our willingness to say, hey, we're going to just keep tolerating this and just kind of go with the flow until we get the money. So.
What's the cleaning schedule on those rooms? So like, is every classroom inspected before a class goes there? When was the last time they're inspected before somebody discovered this? You know,
Yeah.
Are the bathrooms clean? Are the hallways, you know,
Right.
everything's, every space touched in that building before class, before students?
We have our maintenance, and our custodial is contractual, and Chris and I have addressed some of those same concerns with our contractual provider. Throughout COVID, throughout the pandemic, they have been short-staffed and challenged with hiring, like a lot of other people who are, you know, they're having minimum wage jobs. So they have, we talked with them a few weeks ago in order to address that. They've added some incentives, increased wages. We just basically kind of drew a line there. There were a lot of photos and things that were being shared with us from faculty when they returned on campus that was a concern for us, so we are addressing those. In terms of our usual schedule every summer is a routine maintenance. So as I mentioned, all of those rooms had air purifiers in them, so our maintenance teams were in every single one of those rooms throughout the summer. You know, they have regular preventative maintenance that they perform on all of those fan coil units and other items throughout the classroom. So everything was checked as usual throughout June and July. Really, the first report of anything we received was August 12th, and then, like I said, with the conditions happening, there were just AC units failing one after another, trying to keep up, and it was just creating this massive issue of concern for all of us. So. If there's no other questions on the main complex, I just want to, I'm sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time, but we are also working on our COVID-19 testing plan, which under our state mandate, we have to, well, we don't have to, but we are providing free testing on campus. We are working with Shield USA, which is out of the U of I. It was what U of I used in order, it's the saliva-based testing. It's very quick, but we are not able to get all of the supplies we need in order to start that next Monday. So we are planning a communication. We shared this at the all-team meeting today that should go out tomorrow or Thursday at the latest, just to provide our students and our staff who will be required to complete testing due to their vaccination status, just providing them those details. The first week at least, we have the rapid antigen nasal swabs that we will be performing on the Godfrey campus, and then we're hoping that by the following week we'll be able to switch to the PCR tests. Again, this is all free. It's funded through the Illinois Department of Public Health and through CARES Act. So I will keep the board up to date on that, but just wanted to let you know that's also in the works. And I just wanted to also mention, we had an amazing event on campus over the weekend, if you had a chance to get out, but Bike MS was in their 7th year, although officially last year they weren't able to do it because of COVID. So I want to thank Brad Raish, who lived on campus and slept in his office all weekend long, along with a number of our other staff who take part in helping plan that through our operations and maintenance team. They had over 1,000 riders this year, and last that I heard from Sherry Shadow, the director, they were forecasted to exceed their $1 million fundraising goal. So just a big kudos to our team for helping pull that off in the midst of everything else happening. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lori. And Brett's going to take on C and G, so if it's okay, I've asked him just to combine those. Thank you.
Good evening. Just a couple of quick items, really. The first thing I'd say is from under IT, two points here. We're conducting the search to replace Jeff Watson, the director of as a director of technology position. That search has begun. The committee is formed. We're reviewing, probably be reviewing candidates very soon. We're advertising widely to get as large of a candidate pool as we possibly can. That work's underway. We'll have hopefully more to report in the next month. Also would point out too, just to follow on Lori's comments, the IT staff has really had to step up greatly to support the tracking system that we're putting in place to do compliance with this vaccine and testing requirement. And they've been working tirelessly to make sure that we're able to support the activities of the staff in that area. So good to them. From an enrollment perspective, again, you approved in the personnel report this evening the appointment of our new Dean of Student Experience. She will be starting in October 1st. And so we're also actively working to onboard her in the best and most efficient way possible. Obviously, that also at the same time pushes me into my new position. My wife thinks she's accused me of being a deadbeat because I haven't had a regular job in 2 years. So thank you for that. But we'll be transitioning on October 1st as well. So any questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I missed. Did I hear you say that you're going to be developing a job description or whatever to replace Jeff Watson? Is it that?
It is. It's already developed and listed. It's approved through this board. It's the Director of Technology / CIO. Yes.
Okay. I'm a little confused because
It's a revision of that position. I probably am misspeaking and confusing you. I'm causing the confusion. It's a re-envisioning of that position at a new grade, but it is functioning as the Director of Technology / CIO.
Okay.
Thank you.
You, Brett. Mary.
Good evening again. Tonight's approval of the personnel report included the addition of Stephanie Nultal as the manager of grant operations. You may remember that this is a new position as part of the college's reorganization plan. Stephanie will have primary responsibility for oversight of grant responsibilities that are linked to the finance office. As well, she will work with Brett in the grant development area to assess future grant opportunities. Stephanie comes to us from Olney Central College, where she's been working in leadership of a Title III Strengthening Institutions grant. And prior to Olney, Stephanie worked at Vincennes University, where her first position was a grant accountant. Having experience on both sides of grant work, I'm excited to welcome her to our team. My next comment is said with some sadness. Denise Roth has served the college and its students in the bursar's office for 29 years as of last month. At the end of September, she will be closing the bursar's door for the last time, and she will be sorely missed by not only the finance office and our students, but a number of our team. The search committee will be meeting soon to seek Denise's replacement, as well as replacement for Megan Weber, another accounting specialist within our office, who left us to pursue another opportunity earlier this month. I'm hopeful that once we get the team pulled together, we'll be bringing recommendations for hire at the next month's meeting. In conjunction with Financial Aid Department, we are again working on the disbursement of financial aid for the fall semester. Aid is scheduled to transmit to student accounts on Monday, September 27th, and disbursements will occur over late September and early October. Other coming attractions for next month include the beginning of tax levy work. At its scheduled meeting on Friday, September 17th, the Illinois Community College Board will meet to authorize special tax levy eligibility for Illinois Community College districts. To be eligible, a district shall have been eligible to receive equalization grants in the year of eligibility certification or in the previous fiscal year, and have a combined educational and operations and maintenance purposes tax rate below the state average combined rate. Typically, Lewis and Clark falls in this category. Last year, Lewis and Clark received authorization for an additional 4.09 cents. By the time we adjust for prior year adjustments on the levy, we actually received 4.03 cents, or approximately $1,850,000 from this additional tax extension. Pending eligibility, there will be an item on this topic next month. Are there any questions?
I have one, Mary.
Sure.
Just with Congress continually talking about funding for community colleges and making it tuition-free, and it's getting some traction, have we looked at all at how that might affect us? What it would look like if they do? You don't know what they're looking at. I understand that, but just trying to think out of the box a little bit. If it was just strictly tuition, how that would affect things.
We haven't looked at that without knowing what they're doing. It's hard to assess. I would have to believe that there will be significant dollars coming in from the state to replace that. Under the community college model, although it doesn't always hold up, we are to be funded approximately 1/3 from tuition. I'm thinking we have about $12 million in tax revenue. Or is that tax revenue?
It's about that.
Is it about that? Okay. That we would have to replace in some way, shape, or form in order to do that. So that is a concern. Should that happen, I don't know what that will look like. Right now we're at $148 a credit hour for tuition and universal fees. We have to supplement that with local tax revenues and with state revenues.
Well, it's a ways off. I just wondered if you've given it any thought yet.
No.
But it is getting some traction.
It is. There's a couple of ideas that go in and out now and then that are scary.
Well, what's really scary is getting the money from the state, so thank you.
Yes, it is. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mary, there was somebody with the last name of Roth that you said was
Denise.
leaving. Could you say that again?
Denise Roth.
Denise Roth, yeah.
29 years.
She's retiring?
She's retiring. 29 years.
Okay.
She has served our students in the bursar's office that entire time. Very patient, very thorough.
Yeah, I'm just puzzled because it wasn't about 6 months or so, we had an early retirement incentive program,
Right.
but she didn't take advantage of that, huh?
Denise had,
I don't want to go any personal, don't give me any personal information, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it's not that. She just had chosen a time to retire that she felt best served the college in training other individuals and getting the fall semester started. So, yeah,
That's pretty considerate of her.
I think it was, yes. Yes, so. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Dr. Hill, I think you're next.
Hello, everyone. I do want to add that Denise will sorely be missed. Sometimes I think she's the student whisperer because students will scream at her and because it's money involved, and she handles it extraordinarily well. I also want to publicly say that I am grateful and thankful to the patience that students have had during the process, and COVID testing announcements, mandates, things that have happened in the main complex. Mr. Copeland can tell you that student government has been talking about different things they can do to support students, but overall, students have taken, they understand why we're doing what we're doing, and we're grateful for that. So a few of my official updates are Upward Bound and Talent Search. I work with those programs. Those are the programs that are first-generation, low-income college students, potential college students, hopeful college students are in middle school and high school. Because of the challenges of COVID-19, we've had to make adjustments in how we deliver services. So in our middle schools, most of those services are offered virtually now because I have a child in middle school. There's limited movement happening in most middle schools throughout the area in order to keep COVID from spreading amongst groups. But we are doing what we can virtually to provide service to those students. Talent Search is having a little bit better luck in serving students in terms of providing weekly visits on site. So there are limitations in terms of what we can do in terms of field trips, taking students off site, but we continue to provide those services and provide students, the ability to see college options and future options for themselves. On the student activity side, we have started our dive into our calendar of events. Earlier this week, even, there was a blood drive sponsored by the Black Student Association. 36 units were collected. Tomorrow, there's another blood drive sponsored by the the Veterans Club at Old Bakery Beer Company from 10 to 3. And there's also a tie-dye shirt event with Sundays. Later this month, we have bingo. We have Fall Fest, which I've mentioned a few times to this group, on Wednesday, September 22nd. And then we're also looking at having an outdoor movie, hopefully if the weather holds well, on Wednesday, September 29th outdoors. Right now we have a selection of about 4 different family-friendly movies that we're evaluating and considering. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Move over to Doug, Athletics.
Mr. Chairman, before I give my report on Trailblazer Athletics, I wanted to thank Mr. Trent for making a basketball analogy regarding collecting funds from the state legislature. You could have said, we need a touchdown. You could have said, we need a strikeout, but you said we need a full court press. Not a half court press or a half court trap, a full court press. From a basketball coach, that is beautiful. Thank you, sir. By our numbers, Trailblazer Athletics has 159 student athletes this year. We've got 15 women's soccer players, 27 men's soccer, 12 volleyball, 35 baseball, 20 softball, 8 golfers, 8 women's tennis, 8 men's tennis, 14 women's basketball, and yes, Mr. Trent, I've got 20 men's basketball players. About 107 of those student athletes live in the Trailblazer Commons. We continue our membership in the National Junior College Athletic Association, and that's about 600 plus schools across the United States. We continue our membership in Region 24, which is a membership of 20 institutions geographically located in Southern Illinois. And we also continue membership in the Midwest Athletic Conference with 8 community colleges. Our 159 students are a small group of about 60,000 across the country that participate in the NJCA athletics programs. I want to break down what each sport is involved in at this time. We have an in-season, we have a scrimmage season, and we have a preseason going on right now. The in-season programs are men's soccer, women's soccer, and volleyball. The scrimmage season programs are baseball, softball, men's and women's tennis, and golf. And the preseason is women's basketball and men's basketball. Catch me after the meeting, I'll explain all those differences to you. They're very distinct rules that each program has to follow. The women's soccer program currently has a record of 3-2, and I would love to invite you to their next home game on Saturday, the 25th of September at noon. Tim Rooney has them going. Men's soccer is also 3-2. Their next home game is Sunday the 19th at 3 p.m. That one we really need you to come out for because that's against our region rival, Illinois Central. We need your support. Volleyball is currently 3-6. Their next home game is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Would love to see you there. That ends my report.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. Gary. Where's Gary? There he is.
Good evening. I don't know whether I can top that report or not. It was pretty good. I've just got a couple items I want to update you on. One is a new program that we've advanced. Given the increased level of funding that we've realized from the state this year, I wanted to respond to sort of long-term discussions about how we interact with the college and how we can strengthen those interactions. And so we have proposed a program that we call the Faculty Fellows Program. I've distributed this in a draft form to the leadership team and have requested input and fine-tuning of that. Effectively, what that program would do would be to offset funding for faculty, either during the academic year or during the summer, to conduct research, either individually or in cooperation with NGRIC scientists, to develop courses that are relevant to freshwater systems that NGRIC is focused on, to develop outreach programs that are focused on freshwater systems. And essentially, it would be a paid program that faculty could take advantage of in a competitive format. And the funding would offset funding for one or more courses that they might be teaching so that the college could pick up someone else to teach that course if it occurred that way. So that proposal is under discussion, and I wanted to report on that in this formative stage because we are looking for input on how that might work. I think what it will do is it will strengthen relationships with NGRIC, obviously, but I think it'll also strengthen the opportunity for our college faculty to broaden their programs, to be able to do something a little bit different and then bring that back into the classroom. A typical proposal might involve course development, developing a course that's relevant to the NGRIC mission, or developing a special program, or developing a research project. So I just wanted to put that out there. We're in the process of fine-tuning that, and once it gets a little bit further along, I want to distribute it to you folks so you can take a look at it, and then we'll proceed to, hopefully, to the implementation stage. So I'm pretty excited about that, and it is a direct response to long-term discussions that we've had about how do we strengthen this relationship between the college and NGRIC. The second program that I want to talk about is we've had a long-term relationship with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS, and That has been direct funding from NRCS to support landowner assistance programs that we conduct. And a lot of the focus of that program is in the 7-county area of the district, but also all across southern Illinois. And what we do in that program is to take our science and current science that relates to how to best manage land and help landowners to implement stronger practices on the land, be more effective in controlling soil erosion, be more effective in controlling nutrient loss, be more effective in accessing government programs which can help them financially to do that, but at the same time, bringing education to the mix, which is not normally done through NRCS, that reflects on the mission of NGRIC. So that program has been funded at about $400,000 annually for several years. This year, that funding is going to triple to $1.2 million. And what that will allow us to do is basically to triple the number of land conservation specialists that we have out in the field, serve more landowners, and hopefully be more effective in this partnership with NRCS. So those are the two things I just wanted to bring to your attention. I'll keep you updated on both of those, but if you've got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, it's almost time to go.
Thank you. And Debbie. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm glad I wrote my script out because after all of that main complex conversation, all I can think is hang on to your wallets. There's a capital campaign coming along, so let's do it. August was a really busy month for the foundation. The board of directors met on Wednesday the 18th and had a full agenda that included a review of our investment portfolio that was very positive, as you all can imagine. I'm sure yours are too. Approval of our fiscal year 22 budget, final budget, a detailed review of the college's strategic plan by Dr. Traska, which has spurred a lot of activity with regard to aligning the foundation's strategic plan to the college's strategic plan. And that's very exciting for me because as a fundraiser, nothing helps more than focus, focus, focus. In addition, we had reports from members of Dr. T's leadership team, and we were really grateful to all of you for taking the time to attend the meeting and report. Our board meets 3 times a year as opposed to monthly like many, April, August, and December. So our meetings are generally very full, as Chairman Hyen and Dr. Traska well know. Our next board meeting will be on December 15th. Thanks to those of you who attended our garden event in August. It was wonderful to have a gathering that was purely social, no business, just fun. And it was a great time to celebrate our beautiful campus and the work that our horticulture team do, but also the philosophy behind the ability to turn an outdoor space into an outdoor classroom, a learning space, not just one that's inspirational. We use events like those to immerse our donors and potential donors in our mission and encourage them to give. And I'm happy to report that the event was successful in that arena, and we did acquire a few new donors as a result. Our next event would be our Scholars and Donors Dinner, where we have our scholarship recipients and the donors who funded their scholarships together in a room to celebrate the impact of philanthropy. But we have decided to postpone that fall event to the spring, so I'll bring you more details in the future as we nail them down. The College and Foundation's combined scholarship program will begin accepting scholarship applications on October 1st, and we accept those applications online. Students only have to complete one online application, and the software we use automatically matches them to opportunities for which they qualify. So please, everyone in the room, remember October 1st and encourage anyone you know to apply for a scholarship. At Lewis and Clark, everyone's a scholar. Everyone deserves a chance. We will have a deadline of March 1st for those applications and then award scholarships in April. But the scholarship mover team has decided to do one thing a little bit differently this year, and I'm very excited about it. In response to improving enrollment and retention, we've identified an opportunity to enable those students who are high school seniors and typically make their choices about their college next step in college early in their senior year. And in the spirit of meeting students where they are at, we have decided that after the first of the new year, we will pull all of those scholarship applications that qualify for our valedictorian and salutatorian scholarships and our distinguished and Golden Eagle scholarships. Those are all for students who rank in the top 10 or 20% of their class. And by early February, we will notify those students that should their academic standing in high school remain where it is after graduation, they qualify for these full scholarships. They're for full tuition and fees. And many of them are renewable for a second year, which is really significant savings for a student, especially those deserving students. So I look forward to letting you know who those students are and how and what the impact of that is on our enrollment early in the spring semester. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions for me today?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a quick question, or maybe just something that you maybe have thought about. You know, like Larry was saying that you know, we may have free tuition someday. What is that going to mean for scholarships?
Well, I guess I'll be looking for employment elsewhere. I don't know. I think about that as well. But, you know, there will always be old buildings that need endowments, you know, in order to maintain them. And there will always be projects like the Hoopty Challenge that the President's Innovation Fund is underwriting through the foundation. There will always be, I mean, you know, you get a little more money, right? And then you identify something else that you need money for. So I think there will be changes, but we'll be all right. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a couple things here, and obviously just want to thank the members of the leadership team for the updates and keeping us all tuned into what's happening on campus. A lot of really awesome stuff. So October 1st, also, we're going to plan for the first time in a long, long time an all-team picnic. And I guess we're going to try to revitalize some sort of a kickball game that whatever team I'm on will win. But looking forward to bringing the team together and having a little bit of fun and having some hot dogs and hamburgers and all that good stuff. You know, as the board's aware, leadership team will be meeting soon to review some opportunities that we've been presented in terms of formal proposals, some feedback from our community, and then perhaps some options with the college around the Manny Jackson Center for Humanities. So we hope to bring that proposal to the board in the next couple of months. Strategic planning work, which Debbie alluded to, is now being operationalized. So, you know, as you're aware, I've sent updates on this, but we are using the mover team concept to essentially lead each of the aspirations, and each of the key direction teams either have met or are planning to meet, kind of revisit kind of the focus of that specific key direction, and then begin to recruit members of our team on campus to participate on those specific teams. We'll start regular updates with the board, I believe, later this semester, kind of looking at progress we're making. And again, if we're not making progress in certain areas as we thought, we will certainly provide opportunities and options of ways in which we can remedy that. I'm also going to start doing, I'm actually starting some rounds, I think later this month, I think, Sue, with all the superintendents. I'm going to meet with them individually. We're also going to host our second sort of annual superintendent roundtable. Really just helps me understand what some of the opportunities are with our high schools, what some of the vulnerabilities are as we continue to try to build better partnership with our schools, and of course, create stronger pathways from our schools back to Lewis and Clark. The other thing I'm going to do is visit the schools in the evenings, and I'm going to, meet with students, juniors and seniors, and Ryan and Amy have really helped shape that. We're going to bring Trailblazer along, and I'm going to basically sell the heck out of Lewis and Clark and why it's an amazing place to be. And, so parents will be welcome, and of course, students, and we'll have some fun. We'll talk about all the great programs. Perhaps some faculty are coming along, some other team members, and really want to do that with every high school. And I'm going to do that on a regular basis. So looking forward to that. I think that's the fun stuff, but also it's an opportunity for me to get out there and to meet our communities and to answer questions that those members of our communities may have. We talked, I think, enough about the main complex, but I will keep everybody informed on that as much as necessary as we continue to move forward and hopefully continue to hear better and better news. Vice President for Student Affairs, we have 4 finalists that are currently being scheduled to visit campus, hopefully by the end of this month. If everything works as planned, we could have a recommendation to the board in October for a Vice President for Student Affairs. So we'll keep you posted on that, but looking forward to getting that position filled and moving forward there. One of the we're talking about, I think when Sam said it, I jotted this down as well, with kind of virtual learning and kind of what the options are and what people want and don't want. And I think, one of the things we're going to start doing, and it was mentioned in, I think, one of our leadership meetings, is always having kind of a virtual attendance option. I think the owls of issuing each department an owl, where if you have a face-to-face meeting, but somebody may not be able to be there in person, for whatever reason, they have still the ability to access that meeting. This also links to, and I'll talk about this in a second, but some of the policy work that we're also continuing to do, and I'll talk in my, I guess, once I finish this formal update here, but the remote work policy update, we have an express mover team working on that, and the goal is within the next, hopefully month or so to have that policy completely drafted and vetted through our policy committee and then, of course, to the full board. But part of that is that flexibility piece. And so, and then Dr. Lane, I had this on too, but the HLC visit, and, I kind of joked, I just went through one of those very recently, so they're painful. They're painful in the process, but, it ultimately brings out, I think, an understanding, even from a team perspective and an outside perspective, of just how deep the work that we do runs and how complex it can be and how much we really depend on each other's talent and wisdom. And it's just so, yeah. And I'm going to be involved in that. I like being involved in those processes, and it helps me also continue to understand Lewis and Clark and where we have some opportunities. So that concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions or dig into something I may not have mentioned, but just want to, again, express my gratitude to our team and to the board for their support as we continue to shape the future of Lewis and Clark. So thank you, everyone.
Mover team reports.
So hi, I'm back. My name's Ken. So I mentioned the express mover team concept, and so this is off of mover teams, but this is moving quicker. So we have a team that represents all facets of the campus, and so we've met, I think, 3 times. I've missed one of those meetings. And really, the mover teams by design are, and again, I'm putting a plug out there to the team, is you can kind of chime in and chime out whenever you want, but we're really encouraging. I think we have 444 team members, full-time, part-time, temporary. I would love to see every team member dip their toe in one mover team, participate, take ownership, provide insights, perspective. So the express mover team that we're working on here is to try to shape a remote work policy. And there's a couple of sort of characteristics of the policy, and I'm pulling up some notes here, but is to create work efficiencies. One of the goals that we have in this committee is to really try to create a stronger and a sustainable work-life balance for our team. The purpose of a remote work policy isn't to say, hey, I can work remote and I never have to be on campus. It's really trying to develop a policy, and it's never one size fits all. So it's really trying to promote the culture that we're trying to build. It's like saying, hey, we are wanting to be inclusive and we want to build trust, yet our policies contradict those values. So we're trying to really evaluate all policies, and in particular looking at a remote work policy as one that reflects and supports the values of our organization and how much we truly do value each and every team member. So hopefully, I'd say October the earliest, November the latest, we'll have that policy ready to be vetted and brought to the board for consideration, and implemented would be, immediately. So that's that, and I know we have two other mover team updates this evening. So we have Laura Inlow, who will talk a little bit about our Lewis and Clark brand and website work that we're doing. And then Louise Jett, I'm not sure if Louise is here in person. Okay, she's on Zoom. We'll provide an update on the social media web mover team, and then there's any other questions after that, I'm happy to take them on. So Laura, thanks.
Hello. I'll try not to take up too much of your time. We've got a lot going on with the college's brand and website refresh project. A couple things that I may have mentioned in a previous meeting. We are working with Interact Communications on this project, and they have completed a full audit of our current website. They are also currently compiling website survey results that went out to team members and students. We will continue gathering those surveys, so if you haven't seen them in LCE News, make sure you keep an eye out for that and fill one out for us. We also recently received results following a competitor review. So an Interact researcher called into Lewis and Clark, as well as Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, and the University of Illinois. Those are the two schools that we identified as major competitors. And they posed as a student. And then they took notes on their experience regarding enrollment intake, customer service, and website processes when a new student is going to ask for information about enrolling and kind of starting that process. So we've gotten a report back that rates the three institutions on first impressions, phone experiences, and digital experiences. And we've gotten some helpful feedback from them regarding considerations that will end up playing into our web redesign process, and also into some improvements that can be made in our customer service area in enrollment and financial aid. Interact is also in the midst of completing a communications audit. We've sent them 20 examples of recent advertising campaigns and things like our Facebook in general, and they're going to kind of go through the amount of time we spend on those efforts, the quality of those efforts, the results that we're getting back, and they're going to tell us a little bit of information about whether some of these efforts are worth it, whether we need to tweak what we're doing or continue some of the things that we're doing. So that is currently underway. Our next step is to set up a series of focus groups. We're currently looking at dates in mid-October to bring focus groups together representing 4 internal audiences and 4 external audiences, including current full-time students, part-time students, team members, leadership, high school students, high school parents, local businesses, and community members. Interact researchers will use the data collected during these focus groups to form brand attributes that they will test, including like looks for the logo and taglines and things like that, see what resonates with our groups. They're also working on the website as well, so they're going to kind of double time their focus group efforts and get information about website navigation and needs and feedback on the current site. And that will kind of serve for the backbone for what our refreshed brand and our website might look like. So lastly, the brand and web refresh mover team met late last week. We've completed our initial research and discussion regarding content management systems to host our new website. We've narrowed our options down to a few products that we're really excited about. Next steps will be to finalize some internal decisions with information technology, such as determining whether we want to host on site or if we want to move to a cloud host for a new website. And also we'll want to discuss what integrations that we need to prioritize, such as the catalog and colleague and Lucy and Recruit, which is our CRM system. Just to name a few, we've got a lot more than that. So we're going to go back to those companies and ask for updated proposals in order to make that decision, and we hope to be able to share that with you in the next month or so. Does Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Laura. Awesome.
Thanks.
And so Luis, if you're on Zoom.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Hi.
Going throughout the building. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members, community members, and colleagues. Thank you for inviting me to give an update on our social media mover team. My name is Louise Jett. If you don't know me, I'm the coordinator of the graphic and web design programs and a proud Lewis and Clark graduate. I always have to sneak that in there. I'm pleased to announce that the team is no longer meeting because we've achieved our goals. Lewis and Clark social media policy now allows coordinators to request the creation of college branded Facebook pages and also Instagram accounts for their academic programs, and they can use these to recruit and retain students. We held a successful training for coordinators and other page managers during our fall in-service week, and we plan to hold trainings during future in-service weeks as needed. Myself, in conjunction with marketing and public relations, I teach social media marketing on campus, so it's a natural fit for me to collaborate with that department. We now have about 17 programs on Facebook and 5 on Instagram, in addition to multiple athletic teams and other student organizations that are managing active accounts. All the social media for the academic programs are actually official accounts. They're created and managed in conjunction with marketing and PR. And then athletic teams and student organizations are running unofficial pages under the college's policy. These accounts either have a faculty or staff administrator, so when the student moves on, we still have access to these accounts. The accounts are also registered with Lewis and Clark's marketing and PR department. If there are any accounts out there that are not operating in conjunction with our marketing department, I really suggest you reach out to Laura Enlow so that we can include them in our database. I want to thank the team members for their work around this project. So thank you to Welding Technology Program Coordinator Travis Jumper, Radio Broadcasting Program Coordinator Mike Lemons, Automotive Technology Program Coordinator Clayton Rinth, Automotive Technology Instructor Ben Cook, and Marketing and Public Relations Manager Laura Enlow. I would also like to thank the coordinators and faculty members who are managing accounts and the students and athletes as well. And I like to give a big thank you to the marketing and PR team for their help with these accounts. If you're a program coordinator who would like to explore the possibility of having a Facebook page or Instagram account, you can just reach out to Laura. She'll be happy to get the ball rolling. I did want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that social media is just one piece of the marketing puzzle. You could take the girl out of media services, but you can't take the media services out of the girl. So I encourage people to reach out to the marketing department with spotlight and story ideas to promote their programs via other avenues. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Okay, she's gone. All right.
This concludes our agenda, and thank you all for attending. And if there is no objection, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.